All right, welcome to Hat-Trick Sports Talk. We're deciding to record this on a Friday to get ready for Wild Card Weekend or Super Wild Card Weekend, as they're calling it now,
Or the
as
playoffs in general.
or the playoffs in general. I'm joined as always by Shane and Brandon. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about you, Brandon?
Pretty good.
We wanted to open the show today, or at least I wanted to open the show today, discussing the events of January 6th, discussing the Capitol riots. As we normally do on this show, we talk about these big events, or these big sort of historical events, world events, as we did over the summer. But we try to bring a lens of how the sports world has reacted to, um, particularly this event, for how tragic and horrible it was. So I sort of wanted to bring this up too for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to appreciate both the NBA and the NFL, but particularly the NBA on January 6th for their reactions to the horrible events that occurred. From Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum and their Zoom press conference after the game, Doc Rivers before the game. Um, on the 6th, as well as Giannis reflecting on the color of his skin, and of course LeBron James yesterday, I believe on Instagram. I wanted to appreciate all of those players and all the many who stood up, took a knee, whatever else for the national anthem. Every single one of them was a really powerful message. So I wanted to sort of commend and appreciate all of those players. I think again, it reminded me of the bubble and how the bubble's impact continues to resonate. Talking about Black Lives Matter, that was definitely on the forefront on that day, on the 6th. And um, to sort of see that impact continue to be important shows sort of the historical significance of the bubble and how players and even our show here, compared to past years, are more willing to be open about these difficult situations and to have really open conversations, especially for these players and coaches and teams where they have this big platform. Again, I just wanted to appreciate that because I think it was just a super important thing, especially on a tough day like the 6th. Your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's sad that this even happened, and that it got to the point it did. But I honestly really wasn't surprised,
Mm-hmm.
which is perhaps the even scarier part. um, you know, uh, for a long time, I thought that Trump as a president was, not to get political, but um, I never, I didn't really care for him, and but I thought, okay, well, how bad can it really be? You know what I mean? Um, but then it's like this year, ever since it seems like the beginning of the pandemic, basically, um, tensions have just been building and building and building, and then you had everything in June with the Black Lives Matter demonstrations and uh, kind of the way he approached that and the way that many of his followers felt about those events, and just seeing it all escalate to then of course the election, and him and his supporters not wanting to back down, which it's your First Amendment right to believe whatever you want, but when it comes to this point where you are being violent, when you're a domestic terrorist breaking into a sacred government building, and when people die and get hurt as a result, then you have crossed the line.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that NBA players and NFL players and whoever else spoke up, and because they have a very big platform that they obviously, with, millions and millions of people follow them on social media and whatever else. So um, I'm glad that they are at a place now where they feel comfortable sharing, or some of them probably don't. I mean, let's be honest. But 4 or 5 years ago, if something like this happened where they would speak up, for instance, kneeling for the national anthem, people would talk down on them, and like a Colin Kaepernick. So it's I like that they feel this sense of, I guess, more freedom to express their opinions, um, because it is important that we can have a conversation about this stuff, and um, because they, even though they're famous and these celebrities, there's still people in this country who have a voice, right? So um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what exactly LeBron and Giannis said, but um, Robert, last night you and I were talking about a bunch of NFL responses, and I just hope that I just hope that something like this doesn't happen again. I mean, really, or if it does, that it's handled better. Um, I mean, it's who knows what'll end up happening, what the fallout of this will be. But yeah, it's just it's really just a bad situation all around, and it's still like kind of hard to believe that it happened, but you know, we just gotta move on, and keep educating ourselves, keep informing others, and being respectful of each other, and you know, if we all can do that, hopefully this can change, and we can become a better nation again.
Brandon, your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I think Shane put it in the best words that I could. I don't think I have anything else really to say. It doesn't shock me, doesn't surprise me. Uh, I think the only thing I would say is that I think going back to the athletes, maybe as Shannon Sharp said on Undisputed this morning, and as many Black members of society who are in prominent roles have said, it's not that they want white people to be shot or tear gassed or pepper sprayed or whatever. It's that they want to be treated the same way that white people are treated. And the only thing I'll say before we move on to back into our usual programming, I just spent all of Wednesday watching this unfold and going, where are the police? And also, if this was a Black Lives Matter protest, I can tell you that it would have been a lot worse. It would have been a lot worse. And so I think it's time. No, it's not even that I think. It is time. It's time for people in power to take a look at this and realize this is what they're talking about. They're not just saying it to say it. They're saying it because white people have the privilege of being able to storm the Capitol building, the second most sacred building in the United States of America. Just run on up, smash windows, jump in, and nothing happened. and then get helped down the steps on the way out. But if it was black, it'd be way different.
Yeah, I mean,
that's all I'm gonna say.
You even saw police officers taking selfies with the rioters and all this stuff. It was just a terrible situation all around. But I think the players as well as here were trying to make that point very clear. That if this was a Black Lives Matter protest, it would have been much different and much worse. And that's a problem in this country. And that needs to be addressed immediately. But once again, also just to appreciate and shine a light on the players as well. So I think that's very important as well. And I'm glad we always approach these conversations very well. So thank you, Shane, and thank you, Brandon, for that as well. All right, so let's go on to Super Wildcard Weekend. Let's go on to our brackets. We did brackets for ours, or at least Shane and I did, but Brandon, you can comment on those and give your overall thought process. So for me, for the Super Bowl, I have the Chiefs and the Saints, with the Chiefs winning. Shane has the Bills and the Packers, with the Packers winning. Shane, what were a couple matchups that were hard for you to think through? Because I'm sure you had a few as you went through your bracket.
Oh yeah, the toughest ones for me were the conference championships. Just because there's it's interesting this year. There's not and we've talked about this briefly, but there's not that one team this year that really jumps out at me. So it was kind of, as I'm looking at these two games, I was like, well, who's the better team? Who's really convincing and gonna win it? I was like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, besides that, a few of the wild card games actually, especially Ravens Titans, I could see that going either way. I did choose the Ravens because I feel like they're just a little hotter right now. Let's see, Browns Steelers was closer for me until they had their COVID issue. Now it's a bit easier, but and Seahawks Rams also. I mean, it's they've kept it relatively close both times they've played, and the Rams, other than Jared Goff, are healthy now, and even he might play. So I don't know. That's a game that I could also see go either way. And even Tampa and Washington. Honestly, I could see Washington upsetting them very easily. It's primetime game, and it's also, you got to keep in mind, this is not the Dwayne Haskins Washington. This is the Alex Smith Washington, which is 4-1 this year. So, that should be interesting. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Brandon, do you agree with some of those sort of upsets or difficult matchups for wildcard weekend?
I don't really see any upsets happening. I think the Browns, I would say, I think the one that I have to disagree with the most would be on Shane's bracket, which is, and I don't know if you have the same one, Robert, but I think the Titans are going to smack the Ravens.
I have the Titans winning that game.
I think the Ravens continue their losing streak in playoffs. I don't see Lamar getting his first playoff win. I just don't, because he's not there yet. And honestly, in the playoffs, the playoffs is a whole different beast than the regular season. You have to have a leader. You have to be able to get it done. And honestly, I think Derrick Henry is going to run all over them.
Yeah, I look at the Ravens and honestly, I feel like it's semi different because they didn't really get to this point until, I don't know, what would be a proper week that they got this, like week 10, week 12?
More like week 14 for me.
Maybe 14, like where they finally got Lamar back to normal. And honestly, that might benefit them here because he wasn't running all over the place all year. He's going to be much fresher to be able to run that offense the way he's accustomed to. And I don't think the Titans defense is going to be able to deal with that. This defense is much worse than last year. That's why I feel like there's a potential upset, if you will, in this game, because I feel like the Ravens are, I agree with Shane, just a little bit hotter than the Titans right now, because this Titans defense is going to have a difficult time.
Well, and
But
the
I
thing
still
is,
take the Titans.
yeah, I mean, the thing is, too, if you just look at how they match up, I mean, Tennessee has a pretty bad defensive line. I mean, probably the worst in the entire playoffs. And so, I feel like Lamar will be able to just run all over them. And in addition, especially since they're playing like that right now, but also, on the other side, I mean, yes, Derrick Henry is amazing, obviously. But I feel like they're going to have to rely on him too much because I think that Baltimore's secondary will be able to, handle their receivers pretty well. But I'll have to see. I mean, I think it'll be, I do think it'll be a close, high scoring game. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there were 60 total points on the board. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But as of right now, I like Baltimore a little more.
Mm-hmm.
But
Shane, so the Saints go only to the divisional round. I have them going all the way to the Super Bowl and losing to the Chiefs.
conference championship for me.
Right. So you have them going, excuse me, all the way to the conference championship game. What slows the Saints down in a game against the Packers in your mind?
It's just, for me, they're at a point where they are too reliant on Alvin Kamara, and especially as you go into the playoffs with a team like Green Bay that has Jair Alexander, who is probably a top 3 corner in the NFL. I feel like they're not gonna be able to get much production done in terms of the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And you combine that with the other side of the ball where New Orleans obviously has a great defense, but how's it going to do against, I mean, they struggled against Kansas City kind of during like the start of their slump, but how's that going to go against a red hot Packers offense with the MVP, another great running back, and 2 pretty solid receiver. I mean, probably the best receiver right now, and then another in Valdez Scantley, who is not amazing, but he definitely is good.
Had a career year this year, I would say.
yeah, and you can't forget about the tight end Tony.
Robert Tonyan, yeah,
Tonyan, who is also doing really well. So I just think it's, at this point, it just becomes a little too much for the Saints, and they come out on top just barely.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this potential matchup if we get Saints Packers here?
I think the Packers are gonna do a number on the Saints if that's the matchup. Honestly, I'm not big on the Saints. I don't think. I think Breeze is still incapacitated slightly from the rib injury he took.
Mm-hmm.
I
he's
think
still wearing that shoulder, or assuming that shirt sleeve or whatever.
He's not quite there. Their real offensive piece currently is like Kamara.
MT's back, by the way.
Their defense, but he really hasn't. He's not clicked at all this season, and it's a little late to get that like connection going. The defense is okay, but it's not the top. It's not like what I would think of with the New Orleans Saints. So honestly, I would give the Hawks a chance to beat them because our defense is now starting to click and playing solidly. And we all know that the Seahawks can play offense any day they really want to.
But they
Like,
haven't the past few weeks. Now,
right.
do you feel that this Rams game could be a chance where that offense starts to click? Because it could be.
I would argue that our offense has started to like figure out what it needs to do, like in offense to play well, which is run the ball and like they're going back to the run it, throw it, which has worked well in the past. If you look like first quarters are not our specialty. Like we don't do well in the first 2 quarters, but like after halftime, they usually come out and have a pretty hot offense. So I don't know. Honestly, I'm just gonna say this: Seahawks 12-4. They had a pretty good season. They shouldn't be slept on. I think if anybody comes out and is like, we're gonna beat the Seahawks easily, you're gonna have a bad day because like they are the least talked about team in the entire playoffs. I feel like.
Are they the wild card of the wild card? Because for me, they're not in my bubble. They're just not.
Well, I just feel like people are not like watching them closely enough. They're not. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like they're like the thing is and then at the end of the day, there's always the Seahawks factor of it all. Like
where any game could get weird.
They're the Seahawks. They can do whatever the hell they want in the playoffs. Like they've had seasons where they've made it to the divisional NFC Championship game, and they really had no business being there. Like
it's just that offense. Like we were watching that Niners game last week, and that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah,
because I was like, I mean, I don't really put too much stock in Week 17, but it did semi freak me out. Shane, your thoughts on Seattle's prospects?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're in the Super Bowl bubble, so to speak. I think it's between the 4, 1 and 2 seeds.
Yeah, that we talked about last week.
Yep. Yeah. But I think the Seahawks are like the one team that is like they're not in the bubble, but they're like trying to break through the wall,
Yeah, that's how I feel about them.
I think they're like that one team, and then there's them, and then there's everyone else outside the bubble. So, it's I don't know. If they, I will say this: if their defense was playing the way they are now, and their offense was playing like they did in the first month of the season, they would probably be the Super Bowl favorite because that offense was ridiculous. I mean, it was number 1 in every category in the entire league. And the only knock on that team is that they didn't have defense. Well, now they do. So, that's something that's interesting to think of. But the question is, are they going to be able, not that I need them to go back to that kind of offense, but can they just be productive? Can they just stay a little bit ahead of their opponent? And that'll be the real challenge because I don't know. I mean, that's one area where I feel they match up well against a team like the Saints, for instance, whose offense is good. They put up a lot of points, but they're kind of limited. So, but then you have to wonder, okay, well, how is their defense, the New Orleans defense, going to do against them? So, I don't know. The offense is healthy again. They were missing 2 starters on the O-line, which was a big thing. And so, it'll be interesting to see. They're, like you said, they're the wild card of wild cards. You never know. So I mean, I could see them. I could very easily see them losing the wild card this week. I could also see them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean,
I don't think they're. I don't think they're gonna lose the wild card.
See, I don't know what to make. So, like earlier in the week, I said, okay, if Goff plays, I'm going to take the Rams. Goff does not, based on reports, he just doesn't look healthy enough to be effective in this game. So, that being said, I don't know how much stock I can really put into this game. I'm having a tough time. This might be based on how the game goes, but Goff is not going to be healthy if he plays. That means that the Seahawks defense is going to go crazy.
Yeah.
That means the Seahawks are probably going to find. I don't know if it's going to be an easy win because it's divisional games at the end of the day, but Goff clearly will not be healthy enough to be effective in this game.
Yeah.
And we all know that if Wolford plays, it's over.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's
But-
GG. Like,
But I mean, Wolford had a nice game, but whatever.
but like it's Wolford. He had a nice game against
A backup
Arizona's
quarterback
defense.
in Arizona.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like the Seahawks find a way to win just because Goff is not going to be 100%. And I think that does it for me. But after that, I don't know where to put them against the Saints. I just don't. I'm really high on the Saints defense. That's basically the main difference for me. That's one of the weirdest things about how I view the NFC versus the AFC. The NFC, I view it a lot more based on who I think has the better defense. The AFC, it's about who has the better offense because I feel like the Chiefs have another gear. I don't know why I feel this way, but I truly feel like they have another gear, and that's why they're my Super Bowl.
I mean, I will say, Robert, I'm going to continue to say this. They nearly lost to the Atlanta Falcons.
Right. But again, I kind of put that game on the side because so many teams have lost to the Falcons during the season because they're a team that probably should be a playoff team with the right coaching staff. They're a team that can be competitive against anybody during the regular season.
But my point, Robert, but my point is this. If we're going to put the Chiefs up there on a pedestal, like being like, oh, they're our Super Bowl favorite for the AFC. My point is this: if they're the AFC if they are the AFC favorites, they should be smoking Atlanta.
I don't think. Well, the only team that I would say has a clear argument, and this is where I have a problem with the Chiefs, is not the Falcons game. We talked about this earlier that week, I believe. I think that the Broncos game was a bigger worry for me than the Falcons game.
Well, also the fact that they lost to the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean divisional opponent. They do struggle against them. I just think that Broncos game is where I step back. I just don't see this being their final gear. I really feel like they're holding back somewhat. And I don't know if it's because of what we saw last year. I don't know if because honestly, even for how much more mid-tier this offense looks, the roster overall is a lot better. It's a weird, I don't know. I think the AFC is weird. I think the Chiefs and the Bills are pretty much de facto AFC championship. I think we're going to get that regardless. But it really could be a coin flip too. Shane, you had the Bills. Why did you have the Bills in the AFC or winning in the AFC?
Because the Chiefs in the last month offensively, they just look bad. They really do. I mean, it's not just that Atlanta game or the Denver game. They've been playing really low-scoring games for a long time. And this is against a Buffalo defense that was struggling to begin with, but is getting a lot better. Their one weakness on defense would be their rushing defense, but they don't have Hilaire. So they're a bit limited in terms of their rushing game.
I think they have Hilaire. I think he'll be coming back.
I thought he was out for the season.
No, he's not. He just was out for the last 3 weeks. I think he'll be back in the divisional round.
Well, regardless, I just look at their offense now compared to where it was when they played the Bills earlier in the year, which was already not like a blowout. and the Bills are much hotter and much better now than they were then, especially offensively. So, yeah, and I mean, Chiefs defense, as we know, is not amazing. I mean, they're okay, but they're not,
They haven't improved as steadily as I wish they would. I'll say that much.
Right. So, I think it comes to a point where Mahomes' magic runs out just a little bit, and they have, they face a team that's better than them, that's playing better than them on both sides of the ball right now. So, that's why I would say the Bills ultimately. But
yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs won because it's the Chiefs. So
Yeah.
Anything can happen with them.
Brandon, what is your Super Bowl prediction? Who do you have going to Super Bowl and winning it?
I think probably Bills Packers.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can see a couple of things happening along the way to make that stop. I think the Bills are going to have a little bit of a hard time with the Colts.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
Because they're running Jonathan Taylor, is that his name?
Yeah, he's been balling.
He's been balling out. Especially, he's only been getting better and better and better towards the end of the year. And as he said, Shane, rushing defense, not exactly the Bills' forte. However, and also the Bills are facing the Colts, who have a pretty good pass defense.
Colts still have the number one defense in the NFL.
I still think the Bills will find a way to win it, but that could be an upset. Also, in the NFC, I think the Buccaneers defeat the Washington football team easily, but I think the Packers could have a hard time with the Buccaneers because this is a different Buccaneers team than they faced before. This is a Buccaneers team that offense is gelling and clicking and like getting their stuff together. Do I think the Buccaneers make it all the way to the Super Bowl? No, not a chance. But they could knock off in what would probably be the biggest upset of the playoffs if they knock off the Packers. But currently, I think what will happen is Bills, Packers, and I believe if I was going to go with a champion here, I'd say the Bills finally get their Super Bowl win.
Mm-hmm. In that matchup, I'll still take the Packers. But yeah, for me, I got the Chiefs going against the Saints. So definitely both of our matchups here would be excellent Super Bowls as well. We came up with an idea for our awards. We're calling it the Hatty Awards.
Robert, one thing I wanted to talk about before we move on real quick is yes. I wanted to bring up the Browns and the Steelers.
Okay, go ahead. Absolutely.
I've seen a lot of conversation online about how people being like, oh, the league should pause, I read a whole article today about how them being like basically saying the league should give the Browns a chance to get like their coach healthy. And you know what I have to say? Nah.
That's not how the NFL will operate.
That's not how this season has gone down. That's not how anything happened. And for the love of God, I really don't need to hear the Steelers complaining more about being
rescheduling,
about being hard done by. We all know the Browns are going to lose. Just do it, get it over with, and move on.
Yeah, honestly, I think people are being a bit overreacting to the effect COVID is going to have on the game for the Browns. The Browns are still relatively healthy other than their coaching staff. I mean, hey, Detroit played a game with their wide receiver coach being their head coach this year.
Right.
So, it's just not going to happen, unfortunately. This is not how the league operates. That's not even how the NBA is operating through COVID mostly either. So there's a protocol. Both leagues have done a pretty good job with the protocol, all things standing. And as we're in the playoffs with the NFL, I don't think we expected this, in all honesty. So,
yeah, honestly, I think the NFL has done a pretty good job with handling COVID.
It's not been perfect. I think the NBA has been much, much better.
Yeah.
But
Well, the NBA's also had more time to think
Yeah,
about it,
yeah.
you know.
for sure.
I think
yeah.
the Seahawks get my COVID award though.
For sure.
The defeating COVID award because they've had like I think 2 players.
They've had about 2 to 4 cases this year, amazingly. Yeah.
Well, I didn't think they had any.
Yeah.
No, they've had a couple.
For a long time in the season, they didn't have any. And
Yeah.
then they only a couple popped up. So
Yeah.
they didn't have to shut down their facility at all.
Yeah. So that's a weird Hatty Award as we're getting to the NFL. So we're calling this the Hatty Awards. Brandon, you came up with this name.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep this around. We're gonna go, I guess, one by one. NFL MVP. Brandon, who's your MVP?
Herbert. Overall MVP.
Yeah, wait, actually,
bad.
really quick before we actually get to these awards, keep in mind this is if we're part of the media core that votes who we vote for. It's not realistic. It's who we vote for, who we pick.
So my offensive player of the year is Derrick Henry.
Your MVP, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. I have Derrick Henry as well.
Well, what my offensive.
But let's just go one by one. So MVP, you and I both have Derrick Henry. Shane, do you have the same MVP?
Do.
You do.
Yeah.
This is obvious. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know people want Aaron Rodgers, and he's probably going to win the award, but
it should be Derrick.
It should be Derrick Henry. 2,000 yards. He's been amazing all year. I know we talked about a few weeks ago. This is a quarterback award. I mean, obviously it is. But I think Adrian Peterson won going 2,000 yards. What was it, 2012?
Yeah.
There's no reason that Derrick Henry shouldn't win this award. He will not win the award, but he should.
He's been absurd this year. Like, I don't think I've seen any quarterback, any running back in his position, especially on a team that is so pass happy, just completely take hold of games. And honestly, anybody who spends their time watching football as much as like the actual people who cover football
as we
should be able to use their eyeballs and
Yeah.
But
Shane, your perspective on why you picked Derrick Henry as your NFL MVP.
Yeah, I don't I know he's not going to win. Aaron Rodgers will, which is sad, but whatever. It's how it is. But yeah, I mean, it's, this team still has a really good offensive core for the passing game and everything, yet he makes it so that all of that is basically irrelevant. And he just does it on his own, even if he doesn't have to. But for that reason, if you took him out of this team, I don't think they would be nearly as good as they are, because
they're not a playoff team.
No, I mean they've won multiple games based off of a 45-yard run at the last second that he had or something, So I mean, it's it's that simple.
Yeah. Offensive player of the year, I'll go first. Devontae Adams, wide receiver, Green Bay Packers. He's been crazy. If you're talking about a second player who's been crazy at a non-QB position, it's Devontae Adams. Literally, all Aaron Rodgers does is throw to him. It's insane.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's the only piece he really has.
Yeah. But especially this year, I mean, he's just been ridiculous. It's been stupid. I can't think of anyone else who deserves the offensive player of the year. I mean, of course, we're doing all NFL for these awards. Devontae Adams is for, at least for me. If you're taking Derrick Henry as the MVP, I always want to go somewhere else for offensive player of the year. It's got to be Devontae Adams. He's just been ridiculous this year. Shane, your offensive player of the year.
My offensive player of the year is Travis Kelce, who, who, like Devontae, he's been thrown to all year. But the difference is Travis Kelce's on a team with Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a great receiving back. So much talent all around him. Yet he has not a receiver, but a tight end
I mean, he's basically a receiver at this point.
Well, yeah, but he had a record-breaking year for the most yards by a tight end, 11 touchdowns. He's had the best season a tight end has ever had.
Or one of the best, I would say, at least top 2 or 3.
Well, yeah. And like I said, he did this while Tyreek Hill and all these other people were also on that field with him. So, yeah, I think got to give the tight end some love and give it to him.
Before I go on to Brandon for the Offensive Player of the Year, I forgot to mention this with Devontae Adams. This was something that I actually wanted to talk about on that Sunday nighter against Tennessee. Chris Collinsworth talked about his footwork and how he like spreads his feet right when he starts a route. It's insane. He doesn't do any like hand-to-hand fighting while he's going up the field. It's crazy. So if you guys want like a crash course on how to be a wide receiver without a lot of hand movement, look at Devontae Adams. It's super impressive. Brandon, who is your Offensive Player of the Year?
So Shane stole mine. So I am also
You can have
going
the
with
same
Travis
one.
Kelce. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a tight end be so dominant. He's the epitome of what a tight end should be. He gets amazing yard after catch average numbers. I mean, and as Shane said, he's on a team with a lot of big name players, and he's become the safety blanket for Mahomes. So, yeah, that would be my pick.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you go first for Defensive Player of the Year.
Oof. Defensive Player of the Year. Ooh. You know, as cliche as it might be, I'm going with Aaron Donald.
Mm-hmm.
He just continues to be dominant. Really the only major piece other than Jalen Ramsey on the Rams. I continue to make the argument that I think he's kind of wasted on the Rams, to be honest. I don't think Aaron Donald is going to next time his contract comes up, I don't think he'll stay with the Rams. I think
It's
he'll
a
go
long contract.
I know it's a long contract, but next time it comes up, I mean, he'll be in a position. That's my point. He'll be in a position where he probably will go to a team as a 1-year additive. But yeah, he does it every year seemingly.
Yeah. Shane, who got your pick?
Gonna go Xavier Howard. Most interceptions by a player in I think like 2 decades. He also had I think like 55 tackles, which for a corner is a pretty high number. Yeah, I mean that this guy is continuing to show that he just locks down receivers and that he and the rest of this Miami defense is on the rise and that they're not to be messed with. So, yeah, Xavier Howard for me.
This makes me a crazy person, but I don't care. If I was in the press corps, I'd be viewed as insane, but I don't care. Jamal Adams, Seattle Seahawks.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Robert voting for a Seahawk. I never would have imagined.
Wow.
I said this pretty much a month ago that he won my Defensive Player of the Year, and he never looked back. What was it? He got the most sacks for a safety in, I think, NFL history.
Not just a safety, a defensive back.
Yeah, defensive back.
In general.
I think nationally I'd be viewed as insane. But, I mean, come on. What he did for that team defensively, all the sacks he got, he was basically that defense for a large portion of the year. I mean, what he did this year for that defense is just incredible. Again, the most sacks by any defensive back. I think, honestly, the press corps is going to give it to Aaron Donald, but I think Xavier Howard Right, or
Yeah.
TJ, but I think Xavier Howard or Jamal Adams definitely deserves to be in consideration. But for me, it's Jamal
Yeah.
Adams.
And to be fair, the definition of the Defensive Player of the Year is the player who's had a biggest impact on their team.
Yeah.
And technically, that should be Robert's pick. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
it should be it could be the Nationals pick, but I don't think it will be.
I'll be shocked and I'll be impressed, but
I was looking at the odds nationally, and he's not even in the top 10.
yeah, because
That's ridiculous. That to me, I'm sorry. Like it does. Like again, you guys know me. I look at the NFL from a national perspective. What he's done is unbelievable. It just is. I can't get over the sacks. I can't get over how he's basically a linebacker and a safety, and he moves all around the defense. I just can't get over that. Again, I'm someone who looks at it nationally, and I'm picking him.
To be fair, he did all this with the Jets, and he never won it. So
right, but the way they allowed him in the way that coverage works in Seattle to roam like that. It's much different than what he did with the Jets, because I think he was more of a pure safety.
I think I said week 1 on our post-game show, I said, the man teleports.
Yeah.
Like, he moves so fast. And honestly, I believe we're going to give him a contract, and I'm so excited for the future of the Seahawks defense with guys like him and Carlos Hyde, and just how good Carlos Dunlap, and how good our defensive line is going to be, just allowing him to be in the back, just roaming around, doing what he wants to do, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. Shane, I'll have you go first for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Okay. Well, a lot of people were saying Justin Jefferson, which I totally understand, but I have to go Herbert, because he was somebody coming into the NFL that I wasn't totally sold on. Nothing against him as a player, but it's just kind of this, this stigma we have of Pac-12 quarterbacks who are stars in college and they're these great athletes, but then they come to the NFL and they just kind of tank. I was thinking it'd be something like that. But I was wrong so far, at least. So yeah, no, I would say Herbert. I mean, he had the most touchdowns, most passing yards by any rookie ever. And he did that in only 15 games. And so, yeah, I mean, and the fact that he did that with no preseason, no OTAs, and he wasn't expecting to be the starter. So, to be fair, he had good weapons, but, still, it's impressive.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I'm taking Justin Herbert. I love Justin Jefferson. I had him on my fantasy team. He helped me get to the championship, ultimately to losing the championship to Matt. Congrats, Matthew. But I think all the points are there. Herbert, kind of getting put out on the fire and doing what he did. I absolutely put him at offensive rookie of the year, no question. Brandon, do you have the same thought?
Yeah, I'm also going with Herbert. Shane and I pretty much parroted each other at the beginning of the year, kind of being like, I think even before the beginning of the year, when we were talking about
the prospects in April.
I remember being like, no, just no, he's not going to be good.
It's Pac-12 quarterback. Why would he?
Exactly.
Why would he be good in the NFL?
But it's interesting because I'm starting to feel like I think we got to take Oregon's quarterbacks seriously when they come out. Because Mariota, he's a better quarterback than people give him credit for.
Oh, yeah, he's been nice with the Raiders.
But with Herbert, I think he definitely benefited from having pieces around him to work with. And he's a really good fit for that Chargers team. But yeah, Justin Herbert.
It's a great coaching job. It's a great coaching job too. Another question: if Joe Burrow played a full 16 games, does he win this award?
Yes.
No.
Shane, why do you say no?
I mean, he was just because Burrow was even before Burrow went out, there was kind of a debate over who it would be, like, but then he was only on track to get, not only, but he was on track to get like 20 touchdowns and basically do about 2/3 of what Herbert did in every major stat category. So, I feel like, people would have looked at that and gone, oh, yep, nope, it's Herbert. So, I don't know. I could be wrong, though.
Brandon, why do you say yes?
I say yes because I think people would look at him and they would be like, he did this with less. He didn't have the pieces that Herbert had. He was doing well without any pieces to work with. And no O-line. So
the biggest thing for me why I say yes is like the amount of passing volume, especially with like fantasy basketball, or even fantasy football for that matter. We talk about usage rate, and even in the actual NFL, it's a huge deal when you're talking about who deserves awards. How much usage is the guy getting? It felt like it felt like Burrow was throwing 50, 60 times a game. I've never seen a quarterback throw that much every week and it be so profound.
Yeah,
it was insane. I remember, what was it, that early game earlier in the year, Thursday Night Football, like one of the first Thursday Night Football games, he throws 60 times. I'm like, slow down.
His second one.
I was like, dang. I thought the usage rate would have helped him over Herbert because he would have just been throwing like a crazy amount of volume, and I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Shane, Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, I think this is a pretty unanimous decision.
Yeah, I would say
so. Chase Young. Yeah, I mean, what is there to say about him? He came into that defensive line. They instantly looked up to him as a leader, and he, helped them become one of the best pass defenses in the entire league. And I mean, you can tell he's always, putting pressure on quarterbacks and getting sacks and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, fumble recoveries and even an interception at one point, So, yeah, I think it's him, and he's definitely going places in this league, without a doubt.
For sure. Brandon, I'm sure you have the same.
Actually,
there's like one other candidate I can
don't.
Think of.
I'm going with Jeremy Chin.
Dang. Okay, that was the other candidate.
I'm going with Jeremy Chin, and the reason I'm going with Jeremy Chin is because this guy was someone that was not on my radar at all.
Same with me. No way.
Going into this year, and oh my God, this kid lights people up from the safety position.
Oh my God.
He makes so many tackles. He makes so many plays. Yes, he only had one interception this entire season. But
the eye test for him's insane.
Right. He's insane. He had one sack, one interception, 2 forced fumbles, and 68 tackles. He's just amazing. And the reason I went with him instead of Chase Young is because, again, he's doing it on his own. He's
in a team that nobody cares about in Carolina.
Exactly. He's doing it on his own on a bad team in Carolina with a bad defense with nobody else around. So
Chin was the other candidate for me. I'm still going to go Chase Young just because what he's done there. I mean, he was slow to be like, let's be honest. Chase Young was kind of slow to begin the year. And then he kind of grew into his own as the year went along. I'm still going to go Chase Young, but Jeremy Chin deserves a solid argument. We talk about the offensive rookie of the year and how there was a huge debate between him and Jefferson. Yeah, Jefferson's going to get some votes, but it won't be very close. I think Defensive Rookie of the Year deserves more of a conversation.
Yeah.
Because of how good Jeremy Chin has been. But I don't know nationally if people even really care about how good he's been. But
Like
they
the
should.
only reason I know about him is because I literally spend my weekends watching football.
Yeah.
Like I watch every single game.
Yeah,
And
same.
like
He's crazy. I mean, he is crazy, but I'm still going to go Chase Young just because I think what he does for that Washington team is a lot more profound and pronounced. I think he's a huge reason why they got to the playoffs. But Jeremy Chin deserves a lot more credibility nationally. I think that will take some time, but he'll be in a Defensive Player of the Year conversation in a couple of seasons. 100%.
Yeah, I think it'll help too. If their defense does better.
Yeah, and Carolina is growing. Like they're gonna continue to be better as the years go on. Shane, your Coach of the Year pick.
Well, I don't know. I'll be honest. I haven't really done any research on the national consensus for this award, but I'm gonna say Kevin Stefanski from Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland Browns, because this organization has been just a mess. It's been terrible for decades, 2 decades now. And the team this year is really not a whole lot different than it was last year.
Other than losing Odell, which might have been a positive.
Yeah. Which seems weird, but it's true. But yeah, I mean, he came in there and made his presence known, and they went from being a team that I thought was going to be terrible yet again, and turned a pretty bad quarterback into a decent one, and made this team 11-5 and in the playoffs. Even if they're not going to do well in the playoffs, which I don't imagine they will, since the man himself will not be there for this game. But yeah, Kevin Stefanski gets my vote.
So I was going to go with Stefanski.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, wait a minute. I'm forgetting about the coach of my favorite team this year. The team that has been the most fun to watch. Another team that was absolute trash for the last couple of years. Brian Flores, the coach of the Miami Dolphins. This man, I mean, he did a phenomenal job with a trash-ass Dolphins team. They went out, they made the moves in the offseason. They put together a damn good team that I think is a travesty that they missed out on the playoffs. They deserve, if there's a team that deserves to be in the playoffs, it's them.
Over Washington, yeah.
I will probably, I might even, you know what? I might even have to get myself a Dolphins hat.
I think you should. I think you should for the draft.
You know what? Damn it. I'm a Dolphins fan now because this team made me a believer. Like, they were fun. They were fun. They had a hell of a defense. And just like, were well coached. And they were also a team that I could feel good about being a fan of. Like, they weren't chippy. They weren't like mean. They weren't mean-spirited or anything. They like played good, clean football. And so that's why Brian Flores gets my vote for Coach of the Year. And I know people are going to be like, what the heck? That's crazy.
It's actually not that insane.
He's my second choice.
It's not that insane. He probably would be my third. I have Ron Rivera over him as my second candidate. But like I felt that Brian Flores deserved some Coach of the Year recognition last year. The more I think about it, yeah, he definitely deserves a shot at the award here too. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad pick. Yeah, it's definitely out there, but to be fair, I think it's a good selection. I'm also going with Kevin Stefanski. I thought me taking Kevin Stefanski would surprise people.
No.
I really wonder what the national media is saying about this award.
I think it's gonna be Stefanski.
I think
Just
it probably
because
will be.
of-
I was surprised that Stefanski got as much rub from you guys. I thought I would be one of the only ones here.
Well,
but
the reason I think Stefanski has done a good job is because, for one, you know that I've been a hater of the Browns for the
we
last
have
2 years.
not been good with the Browns on
But-
this show.
I think you've made the point multiple times this year that it's the coaches that have not been able to like wrangle the team. Like I've thought they were very Hollywood last year. Like they were egotistical. They were very full of themselves. Like they put together this like quote unquote super team, and they were like, we're gonna be so good, and then they
Freddie
weren't.
Kitchens happened.
Exactly. And I don't think they would have been so good last year, even with Stefanski. I think he came in and he must have said he must have said something behind the scenes, because those guys got into line.
It's amazingly the Browns finally got the right place, right time coach.
Yeah.
Like it was actually like the perfect time for Stefanski to come in. And I personally believe that him and Baker are going to last at least 10 to 15 years. I really feel that way. And I feel like Baker's going to grow with him in a way that I don't think we're expecting.
I mean, if this
So,
year's indication
yeah.
of everything, then
Yeah.
I could see it. But
So I think with the comeback player of the year, I think we can all have the same
We
comeback
should.
player of the year.
Go ahead and
Trace
say it.
McSorley. No, Alex. Smith.
Alex Smith.
Holy crap. If there's anyone who deserves maybe not even comeback player of the year, maybe comeback player of NFL history,
Yeah.
probably he deserves, like once he got on the field, we're like, he's winning comeback player of the year. I mean, but he played a good portion of the year. He was the leader of that offense. But again, I don't think he deserves comeback player of the year. I think he deserves comeback player of NFL history. I don't think anyone comes close to his story and almost getting his leg amputated and all that stuff and that crazy hit and everything else.
Yeah.
It's remarkable that
He
he's
had
not even playing, but in the playoffs now.
He had a crazy, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a crazy ESPN story that they did on him.
They did an
E60. They played it like over the summer. It was great. It's like, what a story.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane how even though he didn't play that much this year, the fact that he had that terrible, gruesome injury and then was out for 2 years, had countless surgeries, came back, and then started playing at, was he 38? Which, for football, that's old. Yeah, that's pretty unbelievable. So, yeah, I kind of feel bad for him because, like, I feel like, you just track his career. He started out in San Francisco, had a good thing going. Then just as they were getting hot, he gets run out of town by Colin Kaepernick.
Bad decision in hindsight.
And then he goes to Kansas City. And just when they start getting hot, he gets run out of town by Mahomes. Just like, dang.
Yeah.
But
the Niners decision in hindsight looks really bad just because Kaepernick is out of the league and without Harbaugh, at least I'm talking about from a purely football perspective, without Harbaugh, Kaepernick just wasn't much as a football player. So in hindsight, that wasn't a great decision. Definitely the Mahomes thing was a good decision, but yeah, his career has gone all over the place, Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to another quarterback here in Deshaun Watson and his future. The new GM, which was, I believe, a former Patriots executive, talked about Deshaun Watson, and he basically said that I texted him. I haven't heard back from him. I hope to hear back from him soon. Talking about Deshaun Watson. Brandon, your thoughts on Deshaun Watson and all the trade rumors and everything? Do you think it makes sense for Deshaun Watson to want out of Houston?
Yeah. He's obviously very upset with the. I don't know if they've got a new coach yet.
No, they have not.
But he seems pretty upset with the new GM.
Actually, that was the owner saying I haven't heard back from him. But either way,
yeah. But I don't know, because honestly, I think he should stay in Houston because I think he's gonna have a better chance of having success if he stays in Houston and says, "Look, I will stay here, but I need pieces.
I need help is what I need.
I need help. I need an O-line. I need X, Y, Z." Because JJ Watt wants to get him success. He's a good quarterback. He just doesn't have anything to work with. So,
you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. It just does. It reminds me of that. It reminds me of the early career of Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck obviously was a much better quarterback at the time. But it's like, how many times have we talked about Deshaun Watson just getting wrecked? I mean, he gets sacked more than any other quarterback in the league pretty much every year. And I don't even think he's getting that much help with the receiving core. I don't know if Will Fuller's going to come back. He probably will, but I'm not even sure if he comes back. And I don't even know about the whole Brandon Cooks thing. He didn't have an amazing year this year. I honestly think it makes sense. And honestly, I look at some, I'm sure Shane, you'll talk about some of the options where he can go. I think Minnesota is a good option. Maybe a Kirk Cousins trade. Chicago, maybe New Orleans, maybe. I don't know. He needs to go to a contender. He can't go to the Jets or the Jags. He can't do that. And honestly, let's be honest. The Carson Wentz contract is actually more tradable than it looks, and this contract is actually more tradable than it looks, according to reports. Even though the contract is massive, I see where Deshaun Watson is coming from, and I would agree. If I was his agent, I would say get out of town. It makes the most sense to me, and I think I don't know if I'm an NFL team, I give up a good portion of my farm to get Deshaun Watson. I give up a number 2 receiver, maybe my starting quarterback that I already have to do some caps and probably a couple of picks, maybe 2 to 3 first-round picks. That's how good Deshaun Watson can be under the right organization, under the right coaching staff. And Houston won't give him that, even with this new regime that they have. Shane, your thoughts on Deshaun Watson's future?
Well, I've been, it'd be cool to see him in Houston as they rebuild, but I sort of don't think that's going to happen. So, now my mind sits here and thinks, okay, well, where could he go? I think the more likely options are Washington.
That's another good option.
Chicago, I could see.
Is Minnesota out of the box?
I don't see that personally. Minnesota could be. I don't know, but
I just think that's a weird one. But that was the first one that came to mind because I think Minnesota is still at a spot where they need an actual franchise QB to get a Super Bowl run.
Yeah,
I still feel that way with them, even though Kurt is, but Kurt's not a high level one.
And another team, I don't think he would go there, but I think that they would be interested in him is New England. Also, yeah, I could see New Orleans as well. It sounds like Drew Brees is going to retire. Indy, that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense, actually.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to do interdivisional trading, so I don't think that's out of the question.
I don't know. It just goes to show you he's a player that would get interest from a lot of people. San Francisco,
Dallas,
Denver, maybe Dallas. He has options. Let's put it that way. Then of course there is, like the Jets or the Jaguars, but that's not going to happen. Falcons, Raiders. I don't know.
Let's. We're talking about Deshaun Watson a little bit last night in our chat to prepare for the show last night. I did want to talk about New England and sort of their future as well. Keep in mind with New England, they had a bunch of COVID opt-outs this year. I don't know what they're doing with the quarterback position, but if they didn't have those opt-outs, they would probably have 9 to 10 wins. Am I wrong about my projections with New England if they were completely full with their roster this year?
No, I think that's reasonable. I mean, they, this team was 12-4 just 1 year ago, right? I mean, they lost Brady, but I mean, if they had I think like if when they have their guys back next year, and if they got a guy like Deshaun, I think they probably go back to being like an 11-12 win team. But that could be unrealistic. I don't know. I think their biggest issue really is just a lack of receivers and tight ends. But other than that, once they have everybody back, if they can figure out the quarterback situation, they're in pretty good shape, I think.
Brandon, where do you see Deshaun going? What are your options if he's 100% going to go? And what do you think about New England as an option?
I think they could. Well, yeah, actually, I was thinking that. I was thinking they should trade him to New England for Belichick.
Can you trade a player for a coach?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Huh.
It's been done.
It's been done before.
That. Mostly they traded. That's how the Tampa Bay got Gruden.
That's right. That is how Tampa. Well, they paid like a couple picks too.
Yeah, but they also they sent a player. Tampa sent some players to
Tampa.
Tampa sent some players to the Raiders, and the Raiders sent Gruden to Tampa.
And a couple of picks.
I never knew this.
A couple of first round picks. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know about that for the longest time, and then I watched I think I watched like a 30 for 30 on it or something, or like some.
I think it was like an NFL Films thing.
Yeah, it was an NFL Films thing, and then I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Do you guys remember in the NBA when Doc Rivers got traded to the Clippers? They traded like a couple of picks.
Oh, really? They traded him?
They traded him to the Clippers for like two first round picks.
From the
Boston.
Really?
Yep. Yes, it was like two first round picks. Yeah.
The more you know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so the national championship just been reported. COVID protocol is good. We're all good. We're all healthy for Monday night. Alabama, Ohio State. Shane, your thoughts on Justin Fields' great 6-game performance in the semifinal and your projection for this national championship game, which should be super fun.
Yeah, that was I was not expecting the kind of blowout we got with
Clemson and Ohio State.
Yeah. I thought Alabama would have this game in the bag, but after that, I honestly don't know. Ohio State's tricky because they've only had half as many games as Alabama, so the sample size is much smaller. I don't totally know like as much about them, right? But I could see Ohio State pulling this off. They obviously have an incredible offense. And defensively, I mean, this is really what's interesting to me because they allowed 28 points to Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson offense, which, as we know, is very, very good. And I don't feel like they are better than Alabama's offense personally. So I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like defensively, this would be a slightly easier game for Ohio State, to me at least. I don't know. I mean, it's just a matter. I think to me, it's more a matter of can their offense continue at that high of a level? Obviously, Justin Fields has been really good recently. As I said a few weeks ago, I wasn't too hot on him, but I'm starting to come around a bit after just really watching him a bunch. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm going to take the upset and go Ohio State.
See, I don't think Alabama or Notre Dame impressed me that much.
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
didn't really teach me anything about Alabama.
Look,
And I don't even think many of their games did this year anyway.
All I know is Alabama smash, Alabama crush, Alabama destroy. I think about Alabama and I'm just like, they're just like a big old Frankenstein. Until you put like fire in front of them, they're like Alabama crush, Alabama slam. It's like it's just like they're gonna destroy. I think they're gonna win. It could be close. I kind of hope they win because then maybe Saban will retire, and we could actually have a competitive college football again.
Clemson's still around.
Yeah,
Ohio State's still around.
And Alabama will still probably be good.
I don't think so. I think honestly, I think a lot of Alabama's success has been Saban, has been name recognition from Saban being there.
Yeah,
I know, but I mean, it's still Alabama, so recruits are still going to go there.
Dude, they sucked before Saban showed up.
Yeah, they were pretty bad.
They were terrible.
But
it's just gonna be the name recognition of Alabama and whatever coach goes there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take Ohio State here too. Alabama hasn't Ohio State played 6 games. We have our whole thing about that. But Alabama didn't really show me anything this year. I don't think Mac Jones is that great. I think that's a huge reason why Devontae Smith won the Heisman. Well deserved, by the way. He's going to be a great NFL player. I just think Justin Fields is a huge key for this game. I think Justin Fields could go crazy again against this Alabama team where there's not really, other than Smith, like a massive determining factor for me that says Alabama has like this really big key. I think Justin Fields is that key for Ohio State. So I'm going to take him in a close one. I could see
Ohio State going off offensively because I watched the Florida Alabama SEC championship game.
Yeah.
And it was just Alabama doesn't really have a defense.
Yeah.
So
the Mets finally made a splash, and they're looking to make more. Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa go to the Mets in a blockbuster deal. Brandon, does this change your perspective on the Mets and their future now with Cohen as their owner?
No.
They
got it. If the Mets were smart, they would have been like, all right, we will take your younger players. Like the Mariners did, where they were like, hey, we'll take your young prospects that are going to be good in the future because think about it. Cookie and Francisco Lindor are old. They are old. They're
still
players.
Studs, though. They're still pretty good.
Not for long. Not for long. Like Carlos Correa is a catcher, and he's been in the league for a while. His knees are going to be going out soon. Like, catchers don't keep their ability for long. I think for what it was, it was a really good pickup for the Mets. Don't know what the hell Cleveland was doing, because they didn't even get any of the good prospects from the Mets. But
Do you think Cleveland's in a rebuild now?
yeah, I do. I mean, think about it. They've given away 3 big players in the last year. So
On top of this as well, the New York Post reported this morning that the Mets are also in talks to acquire Chris Bryant as well.
ooh, now that would be an interesting move, because Chris Bryant, he's definitely not in it. Maybe I don't know if he's in his prime anymore. He's still good, but it's honestly starting to sound a little Mariners-y. You know, like, go out, acquire middling veterans who have done big things on other teams. They're like, yeah, big names. We're going to bring them in. And then they are kind of just mediocre. What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I think this deal is better for the Mets in the short term, but long term, I think Cleveland does get more out of this.
Yeah.
In the end, because of young players, it's cheaper, also. So
True.
yeah, but
it finally sort of, I think what this was a banner move. All the Mets were saying once Cohen got the ownership role, he was like, we're going to go out and spend money. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago with the Mets. We're going to go out and just spend money, make trades, get a team that the city of New York, these Mets fans, can be excited about, compete with the Yankees, compete with the big dogs in the MLB. That's what this was. This was just saying to guys like Trevor Bauer and all the other free agents, like, hey, we're here. What we're saying is happening. That's really what this move signals to me more than anything.
It didn't come across as like a compete with the Yankees move, though. It came across more as a just make it into the playoffs move.
Right, but do you think this move is sort of like this move that says we're willing to build a team that can be competitive with the Yankees?
Well, I do think it's a hey, we're willing to spend money move. I think it was less about who they were getting and more of signaling to teams that wanted to to like ship off players who were good / free agents who were looking for a new spot.
Yeah. That was kind of I feel like this is just a banner move, and whether it works or not, I don't know, but that's sort of what I feel. Going to the NBA, we'll talk about a couple of teams. Brandon, did you put this in the outline?
Yeah, I did.
Actually, good on you for putting this in the outline, because this is something that was super surprising yesterday. So the Nets played the Sixers last night. The Sixers are in quarantine with Steph Curry, so hopefully everything's good there over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Kyrie took a personal day yesterday. He's also not going to be traveling with the team this weekend. And Steve Nash didn't know anything about it?
Yeah, he told all his teammates, but didn't tell Steve Nash.
And we don't even know what the personal day was even for. I wonder if it was it doesn't seem like it was a COVID protocol thing.
And you know what?
Really bizarre.
You know what? I saw this coming.
I think we all did.
I saw this coming with Kyrie. Like, as on Undisputed, they were saying like, Kyrie and KD, they see that they think they don't even need a coach. Like, they're like, we're so good we could coach ourselves. And I think they also have the feeling that they hired Steve Nash. This is not going to work, Kyrie. You can't just not tell your coach. It's like when you're in high school and you go on a school trip. You got to tell your chaperone, like you got
where you're at.
You got to tell your teacher where you're at, where you're going. Like it bothers me whenever I hear nonsense from Kyrie Irving, because you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna turn around and he's gonna go to the media. Next time he talks to the media, he's gonna be like, "Oh, you guys are making me look bad."
He's not talking to the media.
Well, exactly.
He doesn't want to. So here's one of the weirdest things about Brooklyn this year. It's really been up and down the last few weeks. Of course, on Sunday, both KD and Kyrie missed those game winners. Slight overreaction, I would say, to that game. Of course, KD in protocol, so wish the best to him as he is in quarantine currently. But he'll probably be back by Saturday. But either way, it is bizarre because I watched that Sixers game last night going, all right, they don't even have Kyrie. They don't even have KD. And Karis LeVert's going off, running. Yeah. He's basically playing point guard, running that offense with no Dinwiddie. I think no Dinwiddie is actually a huge reason why they struggled last week. No Dinwiddie is rough that he's out for the year. But Karis LeVert could step into that role and be just as good, if not better. That they played their bench and they dominated a Sixers team with Simmons and Embiid. And we'll get to the Sixers in a bit because they've been great. But I do worry about the antics of Kyrie and KD. That could be the fault of this team, because even with I felt that last week was a little bit of an overreaction to how bad that team was. Let's be honest. This team, we talked about the first week of the season. This team with this bench probably should be in the NBA Finals, or at least the Eastern Conference Finals. Kyrie and KD might hold this team back, and that's worrisome.
I'm not so much worried about KD. I'm more worried about Kyrie.
I think I'd be with you on there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Kyrie not as much, but or KD not as much, but Kyrie too many.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. I mean, it's this is the kind of stuff he always does, and so it's not necessarily surprising that he's still on that, but you can't, especially when you're like if you're considering yourself like the top dog on the team or whatever, you can't do that, I mean, I don't know why we have to spell this out for him, because
we spell out a lot of things to Kyrie when we talk about Kyrie on this show.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's I mean, like you said, the Nets should be a lot better than they are, but unfortunately, because of how weird they operate with him, it's just, I don't know. I think they'd be better off just cutting him or not cutting him, but trading him at this
I don't
point.
think anyone wants him.
That's the issue. So yeah, I don't know. I gotta head out just a little bit early, but
yeah, that's good. We'll finish up here, Shane. Thank you.
Right. See you.
I'll see you on the flip side. Enjoy wildcard weekend, everybody. And yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Peace
all right.
out.
So, yeah. Let's go also to the other side with the Sixers. Watching that game, like this Sixers team with Doc Rivers, like we came into this offseason going, are the Sixers in a rebuild? What are they doing with Daryl Morey? What are they doing with Doc Rivers? Simmons and Embiid work well together?
Yeah. I don't know what he's done, but they're working well together. It's a little strange.
They're finally working well together under Doc Rivers. It's crazy.
They didn't tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they've made that many changes to their team.
I think getting rid of Al Horford, which was more of a money decision, and which, by the way, that's opened up the floor tremendously for guys like Tobias Harris and all the other guys on that team. They have more depth with guys like Shea Milton, who's been developing. I feel like they have like a lot more depth than they had last year. But yeah, they haven't done too much with that team. But like, and Doc Rivers were talking about this after the first quarter of like how we're using the pick and roll to our advantage. we're making Simmons actually drive to the rim and pass
I
out.
I think that's a big thing. I think he changed it up so that like they're using that 2-man play, sort of the send the guy to the rim, then boom, put it out to the 3-pointer who can just hit it.
Yeah, guys like Shake
whatever.
Milton
Like
who can
really,
hit it. Danny Green who can maybe hit it.
I think what you hit on well right there is opening the floor up. It was very kind of like constricted before.
It was stagnant. It looked stagnant.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that Doc Rivers does well is he gets the ball moving around the court. He gets the ball like I think honestly watching the Sixers play, each man gets the ball at least once before shooting.
They play fast. Like the Nets play fast, and they played fast with them. And I don't think we've ever seen that.
Yeah, because towards the end of the game, like there was a series where the Nets were like trying to keep up with the guy who had the ball, and they were like around the arc, and they were basically just. It looked like they were doing a drill in practice, like sending it around the arc, and like.
Yeah.
It's a different play than I'm used to from Philadelphia.
It's also funny how Daryl Morey has, I mean, obviously it's Doc Rivers, so he's going to allow him to do what he does. But it was so funny to see Daryl Morey, his rocket self, and how it's like all about threes. And we're going to eliminate the center position and do all these wild stuff. And then he comes here and he's just like, we're going to make Simmons and Embiid work. And we're going to be so focused on that. We don't want Harden here. We want to keep this to work.
Well, he probably came from there. He's like, I don't want to deal with Harden again.
Yeah, I think it was clear to both Doc and Morey when they met the first time and said, hey, let's actually make this work because we can be competitive in the Eastern Conference if we make this work, and they have.
Yeah.
I still can't get over they were able to trade Al Horford. Wow. Let's talk about your Raptors because you have been frustrated. I've exercised patience with them. What is wrong with your Toronto Raptors and their 1-6 record?
They got rid of their size.
Yeah.
They're small now. It seemed like they wanted to play. They went from playing like the ball that was working for them to, for some reason, they're like, you know what? We're going to play small ball now. We're going to just have everybody shooting threes, and we're going to send our smallest guys to crash the boards, and we're not going to have anybody big to go down low. And we're going to pick up a center in the off season who's actually a 3-point shooter.
He's a stretch 5. Aaron Baines is a stretch 5.
It's just it's a frustrating season so far, but you seem to think that they're going to get better. So
I look at the Eastern Conference and I just think it's kind of what's the best word? Like a slosh of weirdness. Yeah. Is Cleveland going to be that good? I mean, they've had some injuries, but is Cleveland really going to be that good? Like they might be in the 7-8 range, but are they going to be that good? Orlando's not going to be that good. Yeah, I'm okay. Like I think it's too early to tell with that team. I think you're right. I think that the size is lost. But again, I said this in the offseason with Toronto. They were just old. And they were trying to get younger. But in the process, and I didn't realize how bad the Aaron Baines move was until I started watching them play and going, yeah, he really doesn't fit what they like to do. Because Nick Nurse is not a coach that is like a 3-point shooting coach. He's a defensive guy.
Yeah. So
this transition is just really bizarre. I don't know who they're going to get to kind of fill like they need a true center, true rim protecting center. I don't know how they're going to get that. I don't even know if they need Harden at this point. I think the Harden thing has died down completely. I think him and John Wall have actually played pretty well together. But yeah, I don't really know where they're going to find it. Maybe it's just that they need to play their younger guys and figure out how to be a 3-point shooting team. But I don't think this team's really built to do that. But with all that being said, the Eastern Conference is too much of a wash, at least at the bottom end, for them not to make the playoffs. They're not a contender per se now. I don't think they are. But they're still a playoff team. I just don't see it. I just don't see it in that conference. This is the Western
Yeah.
Conference. If this was the Western Conference, we would have a different conversation.
Yeah. I definitely think that this is a team that still has the pieces at its core to do a short-term rebuild in the next 2 years and be back to being if they want to spend the money and go all in, they could make a rebuild and make a run at the championship because they still have the players.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
It is weird. Like OG Anunoby's role has grown tremendously as like one of the only pure defenders in their starting lineup.
Yeah.
And that has become more of a problem than I think you and I even expected. But that's been sort of the true issue with them. Moving on to the New York Knicks, another Eastern Conference team. We praise their roster in the offseason and what Tom Thibodeau has done, but wow, have they played good ball. How many years has it been since the Knicks? How many years has it been since we said the Knicks are actually playing good basketball?
Probably 2013.
I mean, it's good. Like they might make the playoffs. I think they probably will.
It's good. It's good basketball, but against bad teams.
Yeah, that's true. But like Julius Randle finally really putting the ball in his hands. Elfrid Payton's been great.
Yeah.
Again, the way they constructed this roster, and watch for a guy like Emmanuel Quigley. He's been getting so much praise from the coaching staff all the way back in training camp. This is what is the most funniest thing about, or the most like fun and funny thing about Thibodeau in how he's coaching this team. Because this is not a Thibodeau team. This is not a defensive team at all. It's not. There's no like defensive players on this team. And then at least they brought in Taj Gibson again, which I thought was bizarre. But either way, they're not a defensive team. This is not a Thibodeau-based team. Yet Thibodeau's like, okay, fine. We're just going to play some offense. We're going to put the ball in Randall's hands. We're going to trust in a guy like Quigley. You know what? For all those years, we said the Knicks need to play their young talent. They need to play Kevin Knox. They need to play Frank Ntilikina. I'm glad that didn't happen now. I think Knicks fans should be glad it didn't happen because they're not good players. They're just not that good. And the veteran presence of guys like Payton and again, Randall. And I think because of that, because of Knox and Ntilikina not getting time, we're seeing the emergence of a guy like Emmanuel Quigley and the trust that Thibodeau has in him. You don't see Thibodeau having trust in a young player like him, but you're starting to see that. What has been your overall impression on the Knicks, regardless that they've been playing bad teams?
I think the Knicks are built well.
Yeah.
Like they're a well-balanced team. They're definitely not a Tom Thibodeau team.
They're just not, but it works.
But yeah.
Are they the one free agent destination in 2021 and moving forward that top free agents are going to look at and go, yeah, that's actually a good spot now?
Possibly.
Because that's what I feel like they were trying to do with this roster. Like, let's see if this works. And then if it does, and it has, free agents are going to want to come there.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying that, but I really think that's the case here. I mean, what other? There's not really another spot that's like a top tier free agent destination that doesn't have like cap issues right now.
True.
So yeah. I think that's all for today. Of course, we'll go through a few other teams as we go through the year. We're just going to kind of pick and choose some teams they want to cover based on the games that we're watching and things like that. And as we get to the playoffs, obviously, we'll go even more in depth as we go through the season. Excited for hockey season as well. We're getting started in a few days.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll see you all next week. I think we're going to go back to, we're not going to have a Sunday show this week or a Monday, but I think we'll be back for the divisional round for Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So, or at least that's the plan currently. So we will see you all then. Have a great weekend. Enjoy Super Wildcard Weekend. How weird that phrasing is. And we will see you all next week.